So the other day I was talking to my son, Hudson, who is 4, and I just thought, I'm going to get to know him a little bit more. So we were sitting down together, and I said, what's your favorite toy? And then he told me some stuff, and what's your favorite whatever? Then I said, what do you love about Daddy? And he said, oh, Daddy plays baseball with me. And I was like, that's good. Now it's my turn. So I said, and what do you love about Mommy? And he said, she turns on movies. I'm like, are you kidding? Hudson, that's it? That's all I get? That's all? Come on, what's more? And he's like, Jesus made us all. I have a picture of my husband and I, and if it doesn't come up, I can describe it to you. Is it going to work? No? Okay. It's nothing fancy. It's just a picture of my husband and I, and there's like trees in the background, and we're smiling, and it's nice, So you could look at that picture, and you could just assume things about us, like, oh, they're just the perfect couple, or they never fight, or, whatever. You could assume things about that picture. But let me tell you what was happening during that picture. We had just finished taking probably like 200 pictures with all of our children, and we were tired, but because sometimes I don't know when to stop. Oh, there we are. That's us. I was like, Clint, one more picture. So my sister's the one taking the picture. He, at this point, is actually rather annoyed at me, but he's not showing it. I am feeling slightly sheepish because I'm pushing too much, but yet I'm still willing to push. And my 4-year-old son is on my leg screaming. You wouldn't have assumed that from that picture, would you? Everyone has a story. We have gotten quite used to crying in our house. As Sandy said, our life has changed drastically in the past year. 2 years ago, actually about 3 years ago, we were trying to adopt from the United States. We have 2 daughters by birth. We adopted our son Hudson from Guatemala. And then we felt called to try to adopt again from the States, and it just would not work. And it was an emotional roller coaster journey that did not end the way we expected. But because of that, the Lord opened our eyes to foster care. We ended up in foster care classes. 2 days after the classes ended, we got a call about 2 little boys who needed a home, brothers. And we knew that this was God's plan for us. So we stepped forward, and they joined our family last April, so almost a year ago, and our life has never been the same since. But then about 5 months after that, their sister, we found out, also needed a foster home. And because God had been preparing us for this, we knew that this was his plan, and we said yes to her. And so going from 3 to 6 kids in a matter of a few months, turns your life upside down. We are 3 different ethnicities. We have Hispanic, biracial, white. So it's pretty cool, something we never expected. But though this foster care journey has had a lot of blessings, there have been many, many hard things about it too. There are times that Clint and I look across from the table at each other and say, what are we doing? There are times we just cry out to the Lord, this is hard. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go back to safe. This hurts. This feels uncomfortable. But because of this, the Lord has also opened our eyes to the hurting world all around us. And I want to tell you a story of their daddy, and we're going to call him Andrew. Andrew, we got to know pretty much right away. He's a man who walks around just kind of defeated look in his eye, and I was visiting with him one day, and I knew that he had some problems with his feet, so I was asking him, how are your feet, Andrew? He said, oh, my feet, I just have, I'm always in pain, and it's just something I have to deal with. I have to get my kids back. I can't focus on this right now. I just always have to deal with it. And I looked at him, and I said, man, that is hard. That is so hard. He looked back at me with a defeated look on his eye and said, ma'am, everything about my life is hard. You just have no idea. And I thought, he's right. I have no idea. I was raised in a loving Christian home. I knew my parents loved me, Had he ever had someone look at him and say, you are special. You are loved. You were created for a purpose. You were made for more. Had he ever had someone look at him and say that? Everyone has a story. We decided to take Andrew and Sandra, who is their mom, out to dinner one time because we thought about how my grandpa and grandma used to take me all the time, if for birthdays or special occasions, get whatever you want. It was always a special time. We wanted to give that to Andrew and Sandra. So I called her up one day and I said, Sandra, how would you like to go out to dinner? Clint and I would love to take you guys out to dinner. And where do you want to go? And she just kind of hemmed around, I don't know. And I said, what about Schlotsky's Deli or Applebee's? She's like, oh, you're talking about expensive places. And I'm like, well, we can't do this all the time. But we really want to make this special. So where do you want to go? Just choose. So she said, Andrew and I would love some steak. I said, oh, Sandra, we can get you some steak. And we took them out to Outback Steakhouse. We walk into Outback, and we sit down, and we open the menu, and Sandra says, oh, my goodness, this is high, like expensive. We can't do this all the time again, Got to keep that in mind. But, just pick whatever you want. Andrew looks at the menu and says, I've never been in a place like this before. And that defeat that they carried with them for that night, we sat around and we talked and we teased them. We told them, about their kids, how they were doing. And that night, that look of defeat was gone. And it wasn't Clint and Jamie and then Andrew and Sandra, you screwed up your life, You lost your kids. You blew it. It was Andrew and Sandra, you are so special, You deserve to be treated with respect. Learning what love looks like has been a challenge for us, particularly in this relationship. And there have been times we've had to really step back because we just simply got burnt out. Or, we don't want to ever enable. There's a difference. Understanding someone's story doesn't mean we excuse sin, Doesn't mean if we're being emotionally abused that we don't take action that's appropriate. Understanding someone's story just means we maybe look a little deeper and we think there's a why behind their action. It doesn't mean we excuse it. It doesn't mean we don't have boundaries. All of those things are important, of course. But we don't judge. We don't judge. We look past the surface and we remember that that person that you're struggling with, has been bought with a price just like you have. That person that seems a little bit beneath you or a little bit above you has been bought with a price. They have a story. We live in a broken world. People are hurting. Everyone has a story. Sandra became pregnant, and because of our relationship, she asked me to be at the delivery of the baby, which I was completely honored and completely terrified, because who I am, if you would start talking to me about medical things right now, I would start to feel like I'm going to pass out. I went to my doctor. She had a very minor surgery on her eyelid one day, and she came out looking much worse than I expected. Immediately, I have to sit down. She's crying. I have to sit down. They get me some cold water. They start to take my vitals, because I'm looking so pale. They're taking her vitals. I'm like, how's Paige doing? Oh, she's fine. She's better than you. That's who I am. The same daughter had an infection recently. The doctor was just explaining to me, now here's what will happen. This is what happens if it gets worse. Just watch for this. I have to move my child off the doctor's table. I have to sit down. They have to fetch me some water. And my daughter says, Mom, why are you always passing out on me? So that is who I am naturally. And I said, Lord, you have to show up supernaturally, because if I'm going to be any sort of support to this woman, it has to be you. It was in December, about 9 o'clock in the morning. I was standing in my pajamas, ready to take my children to school, in my pajamas, because that's what we do as moms, right? Got a phone call from Sandra. Jamie, having contractions, 2 to 3 minutes apart. We have no car, no gas in our car. Can you please come pick me up to take me to the hospital? Sandra, I'm in my pajamas. I can't come right now. But let me call Clint. So I called Clint. He's able to get out of a meeting. He had a short meeting. He was able to go, and he went and picked her up. And he pulls up, helps her into the car, moves the stuff aside, tries to crack jokes to her on the way home. I haven't been taken to a woman to the hospital in this many years, and she's just like, be quiet, when she's in pain. He takes her to the hospital, drops her off. I get there about 45 minutes later. We get the pain under control after a while, and she starts to tell me about Clint. And she says, he pulled up and he moved the stuff aside, and he was trying to crack jokes, and I wanted him to be quiet because I was in pain, but I didn't want to be rude, But the way she talked about him, man, she felt so special. The fact that he had taken time out of his day did not go unnoticed to her. It did not. And I learned the power of presence that day. I just kept thinking about my mom. I'm like a mom figure to her, though I'm not a ton older than her. kept thinking about my mom, how important it is that she's there, the importance, how thankful I am for her. And it really struck me at one point when I was going to go get a sandwich, go get some lunch. And I remembered in labor the smell of popcorn, and I was so hungry. And I did not really appreciate people eating right next to me because I couldn't eat, And so I was thinking, I'll just go down, eat a little bit, and then come back up so she doesn't have to see me eat. And walking out the door, and she stops me. Jamie, what, Sandra? Will you come right back? Will you come right back up? Of course. The power of presence. Sandra grew up in foster care herself. And unfortunately, the cycle has continued. But it is absolutely not our job to judge her for that. She has a story. She has a story.
We know the story all too well. Yeah, it's one that most of us have read. A man beaten by the road. He was robbed and he was left for dead. He was robbed and left for dead. One man walked by, he crossed over to the other side. A holy man, so wise, he saw the cry in the hurt man's eyes, and he still walked by. He still walked by. He went on with life. He still walked by. For that man, cleaned his wounds and left him at the end, saved his life so he could start again.